Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, hello again, and thanks again for joining us for another edition of Someone You Should Know. I'm very, very happy to have you with us again. This is going to be a great show. You're going to learn a lot. You might want to have a pad and paper and pencil next to you to take some notes, and you might also want to have that pad and pencil available to you because our sponsor is our good friend, Christine Dean, who is the DFWNetworkingDiva.com. And all. If you have even the slightest thought of improving your marketing presence on social media, on any other platform, you need to talk to Christine. All you got to do is reach out to her at the website. You can even schedule a free consultation. She can help you take your business to the next level. And I thank her very, very much because not only is she our sponsor, she is also the producer of this program. So thank you, Christine, very, very much. Well, it's a new year. We've got lots of new programs coming your way, and I'm starting, into January with lots of great interviews with people. And today I want to introduce you to someone who has become a good, quick friend because we just met a couple weeks ago. And welcome to Tom Harris. Glad to have you with us, Tom, all the way from East Lansing, Michigan.
Yay.
Yay. Go Spartans. So I'm really glad to have you with us because Tom is in a job title, if you will, that has always been very intriguing to me. And that is he is an entrepreneur, not just a regular entrepreneur. He is a coach. He is a contrarian entrepreneur. So obviously, I got to start off right away with what is a contrarian entrepreneur?
Okay, well, the word contrarian, I think when it's encountered, probably has somewhat of a negative connotation to it quite often. It generally means disagreeable and hard to get along with, which is not the case here. In simplest terms, it means thinking outside the box and acting outside the box and being remarkable rather than mediocre.
Yeah, and I think when I went to just a basic definition of it, it said that it's someone who opposes popular opinion, and that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be negative. It's just going maybe a little against the grain, and as you said, getting outside the box and doing things a little bit differently.
Right, that's exactly correct. It means coming up with original thoughts, being a rational thinker. And most people, as I think we all know, anybody who's in sales know that people react best to emotions, and they buy based on emotions. And I'm a rational thought guy.
So the second part of the fact that you are a contrarian entrepreneur is the word entrepreneur. And I think that's another word that sometimes is maybe misconceived. Some people think, oh, well, you just got to be wealthy to be an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur is somebody that takes their wealth and gives it away. Wrong.
An entrepreneur in simplest terms is somebody who is doing something differently, or they may be doing something that a lot of other people are doing, but they're doing it in a very different way, or they may be doing something that nobody else is doing. And there are actually levels of entrepreneurship. It's not an either or sort of thing. Somebody can be, I would describe a low-level entrepreneur, and I don't mean the word low derisively there, but they're taking something that's already been done, already being done, and they're modifying it a little bit. So that would be a low level. A high level would be, the highest level would be somebody who's doing something that not only is nobody else doing, but nobody else that they know of has even thought of it yet.
Well, and in a high-level entrepreneur, is that generally somebody also that is willing to accept some of the financial risk involved in what they're doing?
Well, that's true. I've heard people say, well, entrepreneurs just love risk and they'll just race headlong to embrace risk. And that's not true. They don't love risk. They're willing to take risks if they believe that the outcome will be positive.
Yeah, and at the lower level, what comes to mind is I think that people who promote other people, like in the entertainment industry and all, sometimes promoters are considered entrepreneurs because they're out there representing some talent and they're out there trying to find the right venues and all for the talent that they represent.
I would agree with that. Yes, because the person, it's not that they haven't been in that profession for a while, but they're promoting somebody who's new to the scene. So, yeah, I would regard that as entrepreneurial in nature.
Yeah, that allows the musician in this case to concentrate on their music rather than concentrating on getting their name out there. They have somebody else that's acting in that behalf.
Right.
So, give us a little bit about your background. I mean, were you just born an entrepreneur?
I don't think so. I think I evolved into one. Maybe, I don't know. I was born in Michigan and I'm still there. And at age 77, even though I threatened to go move south every year in the winter, I haven't done it yet, so I probably won't. I was raised on a farm. I went to a one-room country schoolhouse, which is possibly one of the best things that happened to me in my life. I've always been a bit of a nerd. The one thing that I remember most about grades kindergarten through 6 in the one-room schoolhouse was spending every minute I could possibly do it buried in the Encyclopedia Britannica. When I was growing up, I had no interest in sports. The other boys were out playing ball, and I was inside drawing or designing something. And at this late stage of things, I still have no interest in sports, which makes me in a very elite minority, I know.
And also for those that don't know what Encyclopedia Britannica is, that's the original version of Wikipedia.
Yeah, right.
It was in hardcover books.
Yeah,
like what, 20 volumes to a set?
I don't even remember, but I just remember I loved it.
So this was your childhood. Then you get up to the high school and college level, and where did you set your sights at that point in your life?
Took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I hear that from a lot
I'm
of
still
other
working
people.
on it.
I know I'm not the only one. I studied marketing in college. I've been an accountant. I've been in various controllership positions for small companies. I did work for one multinational company for a few years in the late 70s, and I don't ever want to do that again. Actually, I don't want to ever have a job again. So when I tell people I've been self-employed for 38 years, that simply means that I haven't had a job in 38 years, which I think to me is a positive.
Yeah, and other people look at you and say, "Are you crazy?"
And I was in the web development business for 16, 17 years, and I gradually morphed into coaching. Probably came from a lot of interactions which were not necessarily planned with other small businesses, and I've watched startup businesses come, and I've watched them go. I've watched them be born, and I watched them die, and it's very sad when they die. And one of my missions, I think, in life is to reduce the failure rate, whatever impact I can have in that area, because I don't think the failure rate needs to be as high as it is. We'll never eliminate it completely, but
I know it's kind of a difficult and loaded question, but what are the top reasons that businesses fail?
well, I've decided some years back that it's probably not the lack of what I would call hard business skills. It's probably more likely the thing of not having your head in the right place. And what I mean by that is I have yet to meet anybody who was planning on starting a business or maybe just started who didn't have stars in their eyes. They were living off the fantasies about how wonderful it would be. And they were told by too many people that it's going to be simple and easy. And somewhere in the fairly early stages of it, they realize that it's not simple and easy, it's difficult and complex. And
So,
that's where things start going downhill sometimes.
yeah. So, and we had a little earlier discussion about this, and I said to you, so that really the idea of involving a consultant, a coach, really should be done before you open your door for business, rather than opening it, running it, and then saying, "Oops, I need to rethink this or retool it."
Yeah, that's called a "what did I go and get myself into now" moment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It would best be done beforehand, but unfortunately, most of the people who are planning on starting a business kind of already know what, or think they know everything they need to know. They more often than not don't. So they're very unlikely to hire a coach at that point. It's when they get in some kind of trouble that they're ready to hire a coach.
What do you think that the prime client for yourself is somebody that, as you said, worked for a large company? They learn the skills for the job that they're doing, and they say, you know what, I think I can do this better on my own, rather than taking the lead from somebody else. I've learned the skills. Now I'm going to open up my own, business, doing exactly what I've been trained to do. Is that the person who is priming themselves for success, or they're priming themselves for getting a coach to help them do that?
Well, I think that being a functionary in a large corporation is very, very far detached from being a one-person entrepreneur or one-person business owner. You can learn some people skills working for a large corporation, but the hierarchy that exists there and all the rules and all the complexities don't exist when you're a one-person business.
And is your main focus on that one person business,
It
or
is.
small to medium sized
Yes,
corporations?
my ideal client and the only kind of client I want to work with is a one-person business. That's what I've been for many, many years. About 20 years ago, for several years, I had a few employees, and the only thing I learned from that is I don't ever want to have employees again. So once you have even one employee, the world changes dramatically. So I've done a lot of online groups in the last couple of years, and I did a quick voice poll in one of them, and I said, "What is the one single biggest issue with being a one-person business?" And it was almost unanimous. I have to do everything. And I thought, "Yep, you're right. You have to do everything." And if you've been an employee, that idea is foreign to you, because if you're an employee, you only have this certain little box of things to do, and that's pretty much your job. So, and it can be emotionally and psychologically shocking.
Yeah, and when you're your own boss, you have to prioritize your time between how to organize and function the business and actually running that business of yourself.
Yeah, and again, you have to do everything. You have to do the marketing, you have to sweep the floor and keep the books and everything like that. And that's what virtual assistants are for. I'm a big fan of people having virtual assistants, but that's a lot different than having an employee.
As we're speaking, we are scrolling across the website where you can learn a little bit more about what Tom Harris does, and how maybe you can find out how to be involved with him. But please pay special attention to the fact that the website is tomharris.us, not tomharris.com. Because I will tell you, if you go to tomharris.com, you're going to get a fella in Canada that sells cell phones.
Because I didn't really know that even.
But I made that right away when I wanted to find out a little more about you. I went to tomharris.com and I went, whoops, this guy sells cell phones and no, tomharris.us. That's the website, and that's how you reach him on his email, tomharris@tomharris.us.
Right.
And we'll be scrolling phone numbers and everything across. We are living in a time right now where a lot of people, thanks to COVID, and all either lost their jobs, are still furloughed, or they were early retired, and they are in a position where they're saying, what do I do now? Some of them have those skills to want to say, I'm going to start my own business, whether it's going to be a virtual business, whether it's going to be a brick and mortar office or so. Now is really the time that if somebody is giving those thoughts, that's the time to reach out to someone like yourself to say, hey, I got a couple of ideas. Can I run them past you and see what you think about it? Am I right?
I would obviously totally agree with that. There's really kind of three groups of people in that realm that you were describing there. The first group is people who don't want to be self-employed ever for any reason. They want to be an employee. That's fine. The other group on the other end of the spectrum is people who have always wanted to own their own business, and they're finally going to do something about that. The group in the middle are the people who are more or less in one way or another forced to start a business because they've lost their job or something as radical has changed, and that's really their only option. They are the most in jeopardy people, I guess I would say, because they're trying to do something and make it work, and it's something that they don't really even want to do, ideally. So they have a rough time.
So who is your main target audience? Are these professional people, doctors, lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, someone that's going to run that one person operation, whether it is in a physical location or from home?
Basically, anybody who provides a professional service of any sort, service businesses, one person service businesses. And it could include all of those that you just mentioned and many others. The list is pretty long. It's a pretty broad spectrum.
I think professional is one of the key words in what you just said.
It is. Yes. And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean you're in a profession where you have to be licensed by the state or anything like that, but it is a professional service. Unfortunately, I run across a lot of people who technically are professionals, call themselves professionals, and don't necessarily act or appear to be very professional. And that's something that I'm big on helping people with. You not only have to be professional, you have to look that way, you have to appear that way, you have to speak that way and write that way and respond to people that way.
Do you ever run into those people that we kind of call know-it-alls?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They because they've had 20 or 30 years experience doing something, they think they know everything there is to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a fresh set of eyes like yours, all of a sudden their eyes open and say, ooh, I never thought about that.
Well, that's one of the things I try to do. And in fact, that's really at the core, in a sense, of my work, is to get people to think thoughts that they've never thought before. And I am really big on ideas. Nothing's going to happen unless it starts as a thought, and then it can turn into an idea. And my definition of an idea is that the description of an idea begins with two words. I could do this, I could do that, I could do this other thing. So from there on, it turns into an intention, and some of them turn into actions, and from actions you get some kind of outcomes.
So that ultimately that person says, I will do this and I will do that.
Well, it's easy to say I will and then not do it. And that's an area of study called resistance. Yeah. And everybody has some sort of resistance going on in their life and in their head.
So you wrote a book, the Way of the Contrarian Entrepreneur.
Correct.
When did you find that book was ready to be written and published?
That's a very good question. It's just something that clicked into place, I guess. I had been putting content together for years, and I said, okay, I think I got enough stuff here that I can put it in a book and have it make some semblance of sense. So that's what I did. I've gotten a lot of popular response to the book. It's very out of the box thinking. There's things that a lot of people won't agree with in there, There's things that maybe somebody will take offense to or think I'm wacky or whatever. But I think it's based on common sense more than anything. And again, I'm all into rational thought. Some people will say, for example, don't think any negative thoughts. I'll only think positive thoughts. Is the positive thinking advocates. Thinking about the idea that something is going or could happen that's bad, and acknowledging that's not negative thinking. That's rational thinking to me. So if allowing for the possibility that things might go a way that you don't want, if that constitutes negative thinking, then I'm going to say that buying insurance of any kind is negative thinking, and getting the oil changed in your car regularly is negative thinking. It's not. It's rational thinking. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And we've all been raised with this idea of the power of positive thinking. But if you don't know what some of the negatives are, then you aren't setting yourself up to avoid them.
Correct. Exactly correct.
And that's what you want to know. You got to know both sides of the situation. If you only have one side of the situation, you may be heading for a result that you don't want to encounter. You have to know all 52 cards in the deck in order to play the game.
Well, one of the questions that I ask people very often is, what do you think is the best possible outcome that you can imagine for your business over the next 2-3 years? And also, what do you think is the worst possible outcome? And if the worst possible outcome happened, do you think you could deal with it? If you don't think you could deal with it, then maybe you shouldn't do what you're thinking about doing.
So what is the best possible outcome, and what is the worst possible outcome?
Well, that kind of segues into the subject of success. And here's a contrarianism for you. I don't like the word success. And that's really out of the box thinking. The reason I don't like the word is because it has been used and abused so much that it's pretty much lost its meaning. And the other thing is, naturally, every human being on earth has their own definition of what the word success means. And so that in itself makes the word pretty much meaningless.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, to an auto salesman, selling a car, that's a success. But to the auto dealership, beating last year's numbers, that's a success. Mm-hmm. So they have different values and different levels, but maybe are looked at the same way. And just because you beat last year's numbers doesn't necessarily mean that it was a total success. Yeah, to a certain degree it was, but maybe not as well as it could have been if you had followed a different form of thinking.
Yeah, part of everyone defining success for themselves is first defining their personal values. And I've got a little exercise I put people through to identify their personal values. But I came up with a definition of success, and that is that if your outcomes in life align with what you say your personal values are, then we'll call that success. Most people, if you ask them what their personal values are, they're going to have to think about it for a minute or more. And that's a key part to my work is helping people define what their personal values are. And there are 3 things I incorporate into that: money, meaning, and freedom. And one of the interesting things about that is that people will lie to themselves about what their personal values are. They will say, well, this is the most important, this is second, this is third. And if you really do a little bit digging, you find out that that's not really true. That's kind of what they want their personal values to be, but it's not what their personal values really are. So that's really an important thing.
And is it fair to say that some people say when you ask them what are your personal values, one of the answers is to be a success?
Oh, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's a key that we need to do some talking about that subject.
Yeah. So this led you to I want to just briefly talk a little bit more about what the book can do for somebody that says that sounds interesting. What's in the book, and what can somebody grasp from the book, maybe even before they pick up the phone and call you?
It's designed to make people think. That's the short answer to that question.
Okay.
There's ideas in there that I truly believe, based on experience, that thoughts that most people have not thought before. And you have to be constantly thinking, you have to be constantly analyzing. And yes, there's such a thing as overanalyzing and overthinking. I know that because I'm guilty of it most of the time. But one of the characteristics of human nature is that people will do today what they did yesterday, and they will do tomorrow what they did today. And that's just the way the human brain operates. And you can't create improvement by doing that, obviously. And the catchphrase, if you will, that I use for success is forget about success and focus on improvement. Focus on doing whatever you did yesterday a little bit better today and a little bit better tomorrow.
So is it fair to say you don't subscribe to the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Well, a lot of people have things that are broken. They don't know that they're broke. Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, it's really good if you can know that it's broke and do something about it.
Well, but if it isn't broken, that maybe there's a way to make it function even better.
Well, yeah, that's improvement.
Yeah.
And I have yet to come across anything that can't be improved upon. So that's why if I'm measuring anything on a scale of 1 to 10, there are no 10s. There could be a 9.9, but there's always room for some kind of improvement.
Yeah, they say nothing's perfect.
The other thing about the idea of success is not an event; it's a process. If somebody said to somebody else, well, when did you become successful? And the other person said, well, I became successful on May 12th at 3:47 p.m. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. It's gradual, and it involves, I use the term incremental improvement.
Yeah. Well, the other one is I became successful because I inherited the business from my father.
That can be a good thing or not.
And then 2 years later, they call Tom Harris and they say, hey, listen, I'm running the business the way my dad did. How come it's not working?
Because you're not your dad.
Very, very good.
And that's the most important key to my philosophies is everybody is unique. So when somebody, some guru or infomarketer or whatever comes along and says, well, if you'll just do these 27 steps here, this is the result you'll get. Well, you might, but you probably won't. And you probably won't because you are not the person who achieved those outcomes. You're you. You're not them. They're not you.
Right.
And your results are always going to be different than what somebody else got.
Or use those 27 steps to develop your own 27 steps.
That is the other part of it. Yeah. I teach people to think for themselves. One of my little mantras is think, learn, and create. And think means think for yourself. Don't let other people do your thinking for you. And learning is just that. Just learn things about anything that you're interested. Read books and watch videos and whatever it may be. But keep on learning because you can never foretell when a piece of knowledge is going to become useful to you. And create is very simple. Most people don't create things. They don't think about creating things, but it's the part of the mantra is create something that was good, something that is good, something that didn't exist before, and probably would never have existed if you hadn't shown up. And it doesn't have to be a thing. It can be a process or a mechanism or procedure, an idea or whatever, but be constantly creating something, however seemingly small it may be.
Well, for those that are listening and watching, this is not something that is only available in East Lansing, Michigan.
Correct.
This is a program that Tom is talking about that can be taught and learned and understood and put into practice by anyone, anywhere, no matter what your either current idea of what you want to do in business, or maybe it's just as Tom says, you're trying to think outside the box. You have an idea and you want to do it differently than what somebody else is doing. And that's when you really need to consult with somebody that has the insight to be that second set of eyes and ears and another brain to analyze it. You offer consultations to people. The first consultation is complimentary.
Mhm.
So, folks, you can't get much better than that. If you have an idea and you say, I've been thinking about doing this a long time, and I wonder if it's worth it, why not spend an hour with Tom and find out? Because I think that's the magic of being a success too, is to not take on all the responsibility on your own shoulders, but to have somebody else share it with you and tell you what direction to take. Am I on the right path?
You're absolutely on the right path. Yeah.
So, all right. So now you're consulting people on a regular basis. You're telling them how to make their lives better. They're telling them how to make their businesses better. What does Tom Harris do when he just wants to say, I'm going to close the door on business and I'm just going to relax and go do something fun?
It actually rarely happens. My non-business interests are, among others, singing karaoke, writing. I started writing my first novel about 12 years ago, and I got about 15,000 words into it, and it just kind of stopped, and it's sat there ever since. So I don't know what's going to become of that, but I love writing. I love history, science, metaphysics, spirituality. I like a bunch of different.
That's a broad variety, isn't it?
It is. That's kind of me.
Well, I think the one that pops out in my head is karaoke.
I have no rational explanation for that.
I was going to say, when you talk about doing a 180-degree turn from consulting with people, now to stand up in front of a crowd and sing to them and with them.
Well, it's a terrifying experience. It's much like public speaking, which everybody is terrified of. But
right.
As far as karaoke goes, I tell people that I started out about 12 or 14 years ago, and I was about a 2 on a scale of 10. And this many years later, I think I might be a 5. So if I can only live a couple hundred more years, I might be able to get up to an 8. But that's questionable.
So you're trying to do that and also resurrect a book that you started 15 years ago, which you're probably going to have to go back and read the first draft first to see how you can move it up 15 years.
Oh, I do that. I pull it out about every 6 months and read it. And I say, well, that's pretty good, but I have no idea what happens next.
So maybe what you should do is just make that volume 1 and put the end and then move on to volume 2.
Well, I hope to finish it sometime in the next, I don't know how many years, but.
Well, I think I also learned about you too, that in addition to singing karaoke, you kind of like to dabble in songwriting.
A little bit. I've only actually ever completed writing one song, and I have some other fragments. I'm really good at starting writing songs, not so good at finishing them.
Which in your business is not exactly the right path to follow.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm not that way about business, just songwriting.
Yeah, you want to make that clear to your clients that I'm going to help you start something and we're going to finish it.
I'll remember to do that. Yeah.
Not like my karaoke or my songwriting. Well, living in Wisconsin and all, does that make you a cheesehead too?
Actually, my partner Kathy and I, her sister used to live up in Door County,
Oh,
and we
that's where
used
my
to
wife and I spent our honeymoon.
really. That's a
Yep,
wonderful place
in,
up there.
in Fish
Um,
Creek.
well, I was a cheesehead long before I set foot in Wisconsin. So,
Yeah, but so do you have a favorite cheese?
um, probably ultra sharp cheddar.
Ah, okay.
It's got a little bite to
Very, yeah. And what's your favorite ice cream?
it. I don't know. Probably we have one here locally from a local dairy company called Death by Chocolate.
Oh, good Lord. I guess that says it all.
It does, yeah, definitely.
Well, again, I want to just make sure that the people that are watching and listening nationwide to this program, if you've ever given any thought to either being your own entrepreneur, or somebody, maybe you have a son and daughter or a neighbor that has had an idea for doing something and doing it better and wants to set up their own business. One thing I'm thinking of is I have a good friend who has been fiddling around with fixing bicycles for years and years, and he just did it as a hobby. But now that he's retired, he says, I wonder if I should get myself a little van and just, start my own little business of going to people's homes and lubricating their bicycles, fixing them up and getting them road ready and all. So he's a one-person operation and all. Is he a prime candidate for getting together with Tom Harris to set out a course?
He probably is, and I love that idea because people have a little bit of trouble cramming their bicycles into the trunks of their cars. So, being a bicycle repairman on the road, mobile bicycle repair, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique idea. I don't know. There might be 400,000 people doing that already, but
Look, we've got a lot of people that have taken it, like we said at the beginning of the show, it's thinking outside the box.
mhm.
Here, for instance, in Texas, there are a lot of landscapers that come the late fall and winter, there's no landscaping work out there. So what do? They do Christmas lights. They install Christmas lights on people's
Mhm.
homes and all.
Mhm.
So you get out there and you promote that business of yours, but you don't want to just be fly by night and put a sign out that says, Christmas lights. You want to be able to set up a plan for doing it and doing it successfully. And sometimes it is worth the investment. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. It's worth the investment to consult with somebody that says, I think maybe you ought to rethink this. Because number one, if there's 500 other people doing that, what are you going to do that makes it different? And I can either
Exactly.
help you do that or rethink it. Maybe you should put a plow on the front of your truck and go plow driveways.
On their driveway and put their Christmas lights up.
Yes.
Well, that brings up the subject of subscriptions, and I think most people who are paying attention to business know that we're moving into a subscription model from a purchasing and owning model in a lot of different areas. So, uh, putting people's Christmas lights up would not be very much different than agreeing to mow their lawn once a week during summer. So you have a long-term agreement, or an ongoing agreement at least, that I'm going to show up and do your Christmas lights every year.
Right.
So what that does, among other things, is it decreases the amount of marketing that you have to do, because you already have some clients that are going to they were your client this year and they're going to be your client next year.
And the best and cheapest form of advertising is still word of mouth.
Absolutely.
So if you take care of your customers, they will refer other customers. And that's what I think Tom Harris can do for you, is that if you feel that this is something that you want to pursue, that he can make you see the program and the way to establish your own success. And then you can help do it for somebody else.
Part of the difficulty, big part of the difficulty of having your own business, especially if you've never done it before, is that a lot of times you can't see the forest for the trees. Everybody in business is drowning in details. And if you're drowning in details, it's hard to zoom out and look at the big picture. But you have to do that every once in a while. You have to stop and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? And is it working or not? I have one little technique that I use called stop, keep, start, which is simply if there's things that you're doing in your business that aren't working well or are hurting you, stop doing them. If there are things that are working, by all means, keep doing them. You might do more of them or less of them, but keep doing them. And if there's something that you think might do you some good if you did it, start doing it and see what happens.
My father always used to say in business, what 25% of your customers represents 75% of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true. If you've got ideas of trying to be everything to everybody, you're probably setting up a road to failure.
Yeah, you can't do it.
So focus and on what is best and target your audience that you want to reach. You can always expand.
There's such a thing as being too broad, and there's such a thing as being too narrow also. So you got to find that happy point.
Yeah, that's where Tom Harris comes in, is to help you decide how broad or narrow to make your business so that it can be successful.
I read a funny little story or quote or whatever a while back, the difference between a business model and a business plan. And a business model is a graphical representation of how your business works. A business plan is something that your banker probably asked you to do that's 40 pages long and nobody ever reads it.
Right. Especially the fine print.
Right.
Well, Tom, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your thoughts with me and with my audience. Again, for anybody, if you know somebody or yourself, you're thinking about taking your business to the next level, or even just looking at your business and saying, am I doing things right? Or what can I do to make it better? And I'll consider calling Tom Harris. Start with the website. It's there on the screen, but remember it's .us, not .com. And get in touch with Tom, set up a consultation, and he'll help you take it from there. So I thank you very, very much for spending the time with me.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, and as I always say, go out and make it a good day, and also be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
I like that. Very true. Thank you, Stuart.
That'll do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. I hope you'll be here again next Wednesday at 10 a.m. for another edition of Someone You Should Know. Until then, go out and make it a good day. Bye.
Someone You Should Know.